Welcome to Hancock's VMware Half Hour. And welcome back to another episode of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Well, so if you've been watching the last couple of videos, I was intrigued really recently by a lot of discussion and chat about a particular issue with Windows virtual machines. Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server 2016, 2019, 2022 and 2025. And it's all really to do with the recovery partition that is installed by default when you install one of those versions of Windows to a virtual machine. And how it gets in the way of expanding a virtual disk or extending a virtual disk, because the recovery partition is actually at the end of the disk. And when you actually, as I've shown in the last couple of videos, when you add and extend the virtual disk, that's after the recovery partition, which doesn't allow you easily to extend the partition. Now, in the first couple of parts of this video, part 1 and part 2 we'll call them, in the first version of this I actually basically showed you how to use gparted live CD-ROM to extend and expand and manipulate your partitions so that you could extend that partition if you want to keep the recovery partition. As I've made quite clear, I don't really think that there is a need for a recovery partition in a virtual machine, but however, if you want to keep the recovery partition, I showed you with gparted how to do that. In the second video we had a little look at two products, AOMEI Partition Assistant, and we also basically looked at EaseUS, and we quickly found, annoyingly, that the free versions of these aren't going to basically do diddly squat for your server virtual machine at all. You know, it's basically going to turn around and say no can do, that place in the Himalayas again, and you're going to have to basically go off and part with some money to do it. So they're a complete waste of time if you're using a server version. So I was curious. Curiosity got the better of me, so I thought, okay, let's revisit this using Windows 11. So here I've got a Windows, I will have a Windows 11 machine. There we go. I've got a Windows 11 virtual machine. Let's just zoom in on that for you. And what we're going to do, we're going to do exactly the same thing. I've already basically created a snapshot of this particular virtual machine. And interestingly, you know, when I actually spun this virtual machine up, I already found, I don't know why, I can't remember what I was doing with this virtual machine before. But what I actually found was it already had a 16 gig unallocated space after the recovery partitions was already there. So I must have been doing something with this before and I left it like it. So we're going to repeat exactly the same thing that we did in the last video, but I'm going to use these two tools. Now, they're not on this virtual machine, they're on my NAS. So I'm just basically going to connect to that NAS. He says if he can spell it and see it. I think I've maybe got that wrong. Just thinking about it. Let's just try and run that again. Okay, username and password. And we'll install these tools. There we go. That's the second. So I did actually basically get it right. Okay, so I've copied these and created a folder called Partition Tools. Partition Tools. And the first one we're going to install is we're going to install this Partition Assistant which is by AOMEI. I must admit, I'm going to get really annoyed if we try and do the same thing with this particular tool and it turns around and says to me that, you may remember if you watched the last video, it came up basically and turned around and said that it could not move or resize. And after doing a little bit of digging, that was because it was running on a server copy of the operating system. So I'm hoping that we don't get into the same issue again. So I'm just going to quickly install this. Try demo, skip, install. I'm going to install this. We've already got a snapshot, so we can actually basically very quickly just revert, and then we'll install the what are we doing? EaseUS. Like, you know, these tools have been around for a very long time, and as I sort of kind of said to you before, really, I don't really like installing software into a virtual machine that can touch it, just to be able to expand the partition, really. I don't really know what, you know, even if we uninstall this, I'm not quite sure really if anything's actually left behind. And with the amount of malware and Trojans and ransomware type software really anymore, you know, I'm cautious what really I install in my virtual machines now, and in all virtual machines, you know, both in the home lab here and obviously in production as well. Okay, so I'm just going to maximize this. Okay, yeah, it's giving us the nag already that it wants us to part with some money. If you remember, of course, this is our recovery partition, which is actually basically sitting at the end of the disk, but not right at the end, because this is where we've got our unallocated 16 gig that we really want to add to this. So the first thing we're going to have to do really is move that partition. I don't think that if we do a resize and move, no, we can't do anything on that partition at the moment. So we have actually got to right click our recovery partition and say move it down to the end of the disk. Okay, and then we can actually go to our resize and move, and we can then basically expand that, and we can click OK, and we're going to click apply. Now, the last time we did this on the server 2025, you know, it popped up and turned around and said sorry, you know, cannot resize move. So I'm hoping this time when I click apply, it's going to basically give me something different. Okay, so I'm going to click proceed. It says check partitions before execution, so I would assume it's probably going to do a check disk or something like that. To speed this up, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and click proceed. Okay, restart into Windows PE mode. So it's obviously got a Windows PE tool that it's actually basically going to use. So the RDP session is actually going to drop. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to launch a web console session so we can have a little look at that. So I'm going to click OK. Operation in progress. It's creating the Windows PE. And when that actually basically shuts down and restart, then we're actually basically switch to our console version, and we can see what it's doing. So it's doing a little bit in Windows. The fact that it has to be installed in Windows, it's then probably basically shuffling the partitions around now, I would think, or installing Windows PE, so that when the machine actually basically restarts, it can chain that Windows PE disk, and then actually basically execute the task. Would have thought it would have been a little bit quicker than this. Operation progress 8%, 12%. Oh, okay, it's speeded up a little bit. Trying to think now. I can't remember whether or not that this particular, that did actually, yes. This is actually I'm sorry. This test part 2 VM is actually basically running on vSAN. I thought maybe for a moment it was actually running on one of our NFS Synology NASes, but this is actually running on vSAN because I made sure that I deployed the template to it. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bob off. I'm going to drink some of my Pepsi Max. We'll speed a little bit of up in post, and then we'll switch out to the console when it shuts down and restarts the machine. So I'll be back shortly, and I'll speed this up in post. Okay, I thought I'd just jump back in here. Okay, so you've actually basically seen that restart. Now it's loading and booting from a Windows PE disk, and this is actually basically now where it's actually going to do the partition manipulation or partition mangling. So as I sort of kind of said to you before, you know, you do really want to ensure that you've got snapshots, you've got backups. Okay, it has completed that. So we're going to basically click restart now. Hopefully our Windows 11 machine is going to restart. And we'll log in and we'll have a look at the partitions in disk management, and we'll see whether or not that they're all completed. We've got no issues. Okay, let me just log in to this machine via the console. I won't log in via RDP. I'm wondering whether or not that we're going to get any sort of kind of prompt that actually basically runs from the application saying to us that all is going to be, it's completed successfully. Okay, so the healthy recovery partition is at the end of the disk, which is what we wanted. And we've actually basically managed to successfully expand our operating system partition. A little bit surprised, really, that the application didn't run, telling us that it'd been completed successfully. Or if it's thinking about it. It hasn't. Anyway, so a success. So certainly we can see that the AOMEI Partition Assistant editor can certainly work with Windows 11, which is a workstation, which, as I kind of said to you before, yeah, it doesn't surprise me really that they believe that Windows 11 and Windows 10 are home lab, home PC sort of kind of versions. If you're using a server operating system at home, they're making the assumption that you're enterprise, a business, etc., and therefore you need to part with some money as a business. Okay, so what we'll do, there isn't really any need for me to log out, but I'll sign out anyway, but this isn't really going to make any difference. So what I'm going to now do, I'm basically just going to, I'm going to revert. So I'm going to say, revert, please. Then we're going to power up this virtual machine again. Yeah, that's normal because basically it's turned around and told me that I've actually basically shut the machine down. So here we go. We're going to log in again. Okay, typical, you know, now Windows 11 has gone off and found some updates from somewhere. But we're going to log in again. Now, of course, all those changes that we've done, of course, they will have disappeared. So see what I'm going to do. Let's just get an RDP session into this and we just expand it a bit better. Okay, so same again. We've got an RDP session into the Windows 11 machine. And there we go again. After we've reverted, we've got the 47.29 gigabit C partition, the OS partition. We've got the recovery partition at 604 meg in the middle there, and we've got the 16 gig unallocated at the end because we basically reverted. So snapshots are working and they are beneficial for some things. Okay, so what we're going to now do, we're going to run the other utility now. We're going to run the EaseUS free partition manager. So same again. I'm just going to go off to my NAS. Can't find it that time. Oh, hang on. That's because I put a space in. Hopefully it'll find that and we can log into that. The only reason I've done this really is to ensure that the tools are actually basically on the NAS. I could have put them on the server before I actually basically did a snapshot, but I didn't. And if they're on the NAS, they're going to be on there forever, and I'm going to be able to find them in the future. So the next one we're going to install is the EPM free installer, and I must have been out of the two, despite the fact that it didn't actually work on the server version. But when we did the server, when we tried to use this product on the server version, I like the method. I liked the mechanism whereby if I didn't really know what I was doing, in the, of course, to shuffle the partitions around, of course, we've got our operating system partition, we've got the recovery partition in the middle, and then we've got our unallocated space on the end. And to shuffle that around and to expand the C drive, C partition, we've actually got to move the recovery partition to the end of the disk and then expand the operating system partition into the unallocated portion of the disk. That's the procedure. But using this particular tool, it does some of that donkey work for us. So we don't really have to understand what needs to move to do it. In the last version, when I used it, I just actually basically went on to the operating system partition and said, please expand that into the new space on the disk. It then had a little look at the layout, and it actually basically guessed what steps it needed to do to actually basically complete that operation. Which I think for the uninitiated, I still don't like that where it goes off and has to reach out and track you at the website. I don't like that. But anyway, I think between the two, I prefer this version rather than the old version. And I think that, you know, for those that are cautious and really not quite sure of what the procedure requires and whether or not they're going to make a complete hash of it, I think I prefer this version. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here we go. We've got a nice layout of the disk again. So this is our recovery partition. This is our operating system partition, and this is our unallocated space, the 16 gig at the end. And we want to expand our C disk using that free space, and we want to move that to the end of the disk. Now, traditionally, we would say resize move, and we would basically take that and we'd move that all the way down to the end of the disk, and we'd click OK. So it would move that down to the end of the disk, and then we would come up here and we would actually basically do resize and resize it. But when we looked at this before, what we're able to do is just turn around and go, well, just resize that for me, please. Okay, so now it's actually popped up and says free version allows you to resize one partition at a time. Upgrade now to enjoy the features. So I wonder if that means that it can't do that. Anyway, just let me click OK. So I'm going to click OK. Execute one operation. So I'm going to execute one operation. Okay. So it's worked out that it needs to do 2 steps to complete this operation, but that's fine because we didn't really know, and we didn't move that recovery partition to the end and then actually basically expand that operating system partition. So if I click apply, okay, so now it's actually basically telling me that the free version So for some strange reason, for home version, upgrade to Pro to enjoy all these features. I'll tell you something, you know, these applications drive me round the bend. Now, was it because it was saying that it would only do one partition move? For business? Nope. For home? Well, clearly it's not going to allow me to do anything, and it wants to actually basically ask me to put in a license code. So, okay, let's just go back and see whether or not that it will allow me to remove the recovery partition. So let's just say resize move, drag that up there, and click OK. Now, can I execute apply? Okay, so that's operating. Now this is interesting, you know, this isn't actually rebooting our server to do this. This is actually doing it live. So again, you know, okay, so that's actually moved it to the end of the disk. No, I don't really want to rate you, thank you. So is that now basically going to allow us to manipulate and grow? Let's have a little look. So now I actually basically want to grow that and click OK. Execute one operation followed by apply. Okay. So it would have been nice to have had to have done it in one process. But clearly, if we want those features, we've got to pay for them. As my grandfather said, nothing is free in life. Somebody is paying for it somewhere. Thanks, Grandad. Okay, so click finish. So I think we're done. I think we are done. So I've not activated it. This is still operating freely. Don't want to upgrade. No, thank you. Let's have a little look at disk management again. And have a little look at where we are. Okay, QED done. Our 650 meg recovery partition at the end, although interestingly it doesn't actually say recovery anymore, so I'm not too sure whether or not that this process has balked that. It just says 604 meg, but it has actually basically expanded our partition there. So there you go. Comparing the software products, EaseUS or EaseUS and AOMEI, clearly they don't work on Windows Server editions. You're going to have to spend some money. You can use them on Windows 10, Windows 11 with limited functionality. And I think comparing these two products side by side, I think the first product maybe comes out slightly better. I don't know. I don't like them anyway, really, to be honest with you. I much preferred G-parted live CD-ROM. But I'll leave that up to you. You know, you've got 3 products there on the table that you can use. So if you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, then give it a thumbs down and tell me why. But whatever you do, don't forget to subscribe. And my name is Andrew Hancock, Hancock's VMware Half Hour. And come back soon for another video by me. And I think we'll look at the old favourite VMware vCenter converter, and we'll do a partition. We'll do an expanding the disk and the operating system at one time, because VMware vCenter converter is going to do all the heavy lifting for us, and it's not going to touch our original VM. Anyway, so come back soon and we'll do that. Thanks so much now. It's a gorgeous day here, and happy Easter. Goodbye.